Hello, my name is Karl Meneghella, and I'd like to welcome you to this season of Coffee with Karl. In each episode, we welcome guests from all over the world who are here to share their knowledge, insights and wisdom in topics both big and small. Hopefully every episode will also have some tips, tools and takeaways that you can use to further your personal and your professional growth. So thank you very much for joining me in Coffee with Karl. Thank you. Steve, good to see you again.
And
How have you been?
I've been fine, thank you.
Very good. I believe you've enjoyed your time here in Phnom Penh.
Oh yes, always do.
And I believe we're also going to talk about time and maybe go back in history a little bit and look at previous times.
Yes, yeah. Well, last time we talked about the Age of Enlightenment.
Yes.
And, you know, it was a concatenation of events. That's a sequence of accidental events that just came together. Mm-hmm. It was not intentional, but we had the Age of Enlightenment, the Scottish Protestant thinking which flooded down into central England, and you know, it was a time of great thinking, New Age thinking. That's why we call it the Age of Enlightenment,
right?
Because it was a new way of thinking. And so what happened was you got all these things come together, and this was like the catalyst for the Industrial Revolution.
Right, and the Industrial Revolution, or the machine age, the mechanical age, 1700s?
Yeah, it began
Yes.
around about that period.
So what was the Industrial Revolution for those of us who don't study history? In a sentence.
Okay, it was the age of industrialisation.
Right, so we're going from farms to industry.
Yes, so we went from an agrarian society to an industrialised society. The whole process took about 250 years because it had never happened before.
Right.
And so it was actually a social disaster because people flooded into the big cities, which are now big cities. They weren't, of course. At places like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, they expanded rapidly. Because what happens with industrialisation, you get a sequence of events. People leave the land to come into the cities
Yes.
in search of making money.
Jobs, yes.
Yep. And that brings people together. They crowded together in very poor conditions at that time, overcrowding, lack of sanitation, the disease spread like wildfire.
Ah, I see, yes,
You know,
okay.
And it was a terrible time. Plus the working conditions. There were no unions then, so the working conditions were horrible. People would work 12 hours a day.
So the unions were there to protect the workers.
Yes,
So they'd
that
get
came
together,
about,
got together like a force and
Yes.
asked and had people represent them. Okay.
Yeah. Because what happened, it really started with the cotton mills. That was the big industry. You know, we had water-powered cotton mills, then it went to steam power, and eventually we got electricity. But people would work 12, 15 hours in the cotton mills. They would literally sleep under the benches or under the machines.
Wow, yes.
Including children.
Yep.
They'd use children to set up the looms on the weaving mills, and the children would crawl between the threads because they were small-bodied.
Yep.
They were the ones that were sent in, and sometimes the machine would be accidentally started up and the children would get crushed.
Yes.
And they'd just bring in more children.
So we had the Industrial Revolution.
Yes.
What came next?
Well, after that, you know, we went into mass production. You know, it went from steam powered to electricity, and that enabled, you know, when you've got electricity powering the machines, it's a lot more reliable and consistent.
Yes. So we see that today, for example, in car manufacture.
That was one of the major industries.
Henry Ford was one of the not creators, but one of the people to actually bring that to
the production line system, the conveyor belt system. Before, when somebody made something, so for example, they made a cup, somebody would make the main body. They would put the handle on it, they would paint it, they would glaze it, and they would fire it. One man was responsible for the whole thing.
Yes.
But with the production system, somebody makes the body. Another person sticks the handle on. Another person paints it. Another person fires it in the kiln.
And now we're actually losing jobs for people. So now it's a machine that makes the cup, and a machine that puts the handle on, and another machine that spray paints the logo, and there's no one, people don't have a job.
We don't meet people. Yeah.
So we had the Industrial Revolution, we had the mechanical age. What came next?
The digital age.
Which is basically where we're at.
Yeah, right. And we're in a transition now to artificial intelligence. We're at the crest of artificial intelligence.
Yes.
It's just beginning.
So the digital age for a lot of us is our telephone and our computer, but it's so much more than that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it affects every asset of your life because, even the way we socialise, Facebook, WhatsApp,
Of
Line,
course, social media is digital.
Yeah, so we use it, young people use it to meet each other, boyfriends and girlfriends. There are dating apps.
Self-interest, not self-interest, interest apps.
Yeah.
I belong to a chess club, for example, so I can play chess with people over the world I've never met.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's changing everything. It's certainly changed the aspect of the way we do business.
So let's recap for a second. Industrial Revolution brought people from the farms to the cities looking for jobs, which still happens today.
Yes.
In Italy, for example, there are villages which are dying out because the people go to Rome or Naples or whatever looking for work.
Earn the fortune, yeah.
Okay, so I get that. Then we had mass production, where it meant that things became more process-oriented.
Yes.
Right? And we had a process to build things, so whether it's a motor car or whatever else. The digital age, which can be things like the way we store information, for example, the bits and bytes of information, how we interact with each other, even things like the television shows we watch, the radio shows we listen to. This podcast, for example, is the result of digitalization. Okay, we're still real, right? You're still here.
We're not
holograms. Okay. Then we're going into, I believe, the intelligence revolution, which is going to be AI, for example. And that's a very polarized discussion. It's a discussion with people who love it and people who hate it. So it's polarized.
Well, we're going right back to the Industrial Revolution again, or even pre that. When William Caxton invented the printing press, the Luddites, the people that were against it, went round smashing up the printing presses.
Yes.
And these were basic mechanical hand-powered machines, but they were afraid. And usually the people that are afraid are the ones that are going to lose the job.
Yes. Yeah.
They're against it. They're against progress because, my livelihood is threatened. Now,
so there's a lesson there for our audience as well, is that to try and keep yourself current in technology, in knowledge, keeping yourself of value. We talked before about value adding, for example. I think there's a lesson here, before we continue, of everything is cyclic.
yes.
And there are waves. And so your job today will be eventually possibly replaced.
Yes.
If you do not improve your knowledge or your capacity or your skills, then you, by definition, will be replaced.
Oh yeah.
So,
I think in everybody's lifetime now, at one time people would live on a street, the factory would be at the end of the road, and they'd walk to work, and they'd work in that factory, they'd start after they left school, and they'd work there till they retired.
yes.
That time has gone.
Yes. Well, even in Japan, which used to have lifetime employment,
Yes.
now we see, for example, as unemployment. So, as you said, those days are gone.
Yes.
And I think for
And
our
it won't return.
Exactly. So I think for our students, you need to keep yourself current. You need to keep yourself in front of the curve. And that's part of the reason why your university, for example, is getting the latest information to keep yourself of value. Okay, positives about AI.
Positives. It takes away the mundane jobs. It's like robots. A robot. If you're working in a car factory, which I wouldn't want to do.
Yes.
I've seen them. Putting wheels on a car, and your job is on that production line. The car moves down. You've got to get 4 wheels on, put the bolts on, with a powered tool, and another wheel, powered tool, and then the next car comes along, and you only work one side of the car because to walk round is wasting time.
Which means wasting money.
Yes. So there's another guy the other side putting the other two wheels on. I only do 2 wheels per car. You know,
I could.
if I'd done that 20 times, I'd be bored stiff.
Yes, and they're doing it hundreds of times a day.
Yeah, you know, so those sort of jobs disappear, and that's wonderful.
The trouble is, and I agree with you, that's wonderful. Well, what about the person who's bolting on the wheels who doesn't have, for example, an education? He or she now needs to find another job.
He needs to re-educate himself.
Ah, so re-education.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's another hook there for our students about education.
Yeah.
You're on a pathway for a degree, for example. It might be a diploma, a certificate, a bachelor. That's not the end of the road.
No, it isn't.
As you start to progress in your career, for example, you can revisit university. I know that, for example, Steve has, I think, 2 or 3 degrees.
Yes, 3. Yeah.
I'm an old guy. I
I've
have
been 3
6.
times. Yeah.
And I revisit university because as careers change, we can actually go back to university and upskill ourselves. I like it. Okay.
Yeah. I've actually had 4 careers in my life.
Could you tell us a little bit about those careers?
Yeah, well, I started off at the age of 16. I left tertiary college, got an apprenticeship with British Telecom, and I used to work on the switching systems for telephones.
So an apprenticeship, just to clarify, is when you actually get indentured to an employer, so you get contracted to an employer, and you basically learn on the job.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Then I had a business. I worked for a private business.
So what business was it?
It was a cleaning business.
Right.
So my father became very ill, and I decided to take over the business. And then because of mechanisation, the work became very difficult to acquire.
Yes.
So I sold the business to a larger corporation.
Could we stop there for a second, if I may?
Yeah.
People think, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, whatever. And I think sometimes we need to look back down at where there's a gap. And I'd argue now that cleaning, waste management, that kind of stuff, if you are technological minded, so you can keep up with technology, they're huge markets.
Yes, they are.
And they may not be as attractive or as sexy or whatever, but
No.
they're things for students to look at because waste management is actually a growing industry.
Yes.
And if you want to make a million, maybe you're looking there rather than saying, I want to create the next app.
Yeah.
So just a food for thought.
That's right, yeah.
So a cleaning business, so an indentured apprenticeship, a cleaning business.
Yep. So I ran that for 10 years, eventually sold that and went back into telecommunications. And by the time I came back into telecommunications, it had gone from a step-by-step switching system to digital.
Ah, so you're in a new revolution.
So I was then, when I say I worked for British Telecom, at that time it was landlines. Everything was landline. The advent of these had come in, and then it was digital switching, still the same process but done digitally. And so I was installing the equipment, and I was put in charge of apprentices. I had a group of about 25 apprentices, and this is where I got into teaching, because I knew what I was talking about, but I was making an awful job of explaining it.
I can't believe that.
It's one thing knowing a subject, but it's a totally different aspect to teaching it.
Yes, the pedagogy, the understanding how people learn, and yes.
I wasn't making a clear job of teaching it. So I went back to college and did a PGC, which is a post
Graduate
degree certificate in education.
Yes.
How to teach, basically.
So you actually had to reinvent yourself.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is the little nugget in this whole thing is about reinvention then. So even if you go on one pathway and you think this is the career I want, maybe it means you actually have to be prepared to be flexible and say, I can reinvent myself. I can become a new me. So you were an apprentice.
Yeah.
Then you were working as a businessman.
Yeah.
Then you went back to being a teacher who realised you had skills you needed to acquire.
Oh, yeah.
Revisited university.
Yes.
Did your PGCE.
Yeah.
And now you're actually in teaching.
Yes, that's right. That's how I got in. It was not. None of this was planned.
Yes,
truly accidental.
Accidental. I like it.
As most great things are. The Industrial Revolution was not planned. Nobody was. It's not like there was a group of English people who were super intelligent and better than everybody else and thought, we're going to do it first. No, it was an accident.
So if we look at, say, more recent history.
Yes.
So England took 250 years for the Industrial Revolution, basically.
Yes.
Right? 250 years
Yes.
to go from
to
the
fully industrialised.
from the concept through to be fully industrialised.
Yeah.
And some of the problems they had, we still have. For example, talk
Yes.
about infrastructure, accommodation,
Overcrowding.
sanitation.
Yeah.
This is a problem which I think we need to revisit. I live a lot of my time in Bangkok, and I see a new condo going up.
Yeah.
And the new condo might be on this footprint here. So it's going to go up here. That's the footprint of the condo, and it's built. That used to be 6 houses.
Yes.
The 6 houses might have had 30 people. 6 families of, say, 5 people. So the drainage was adequate for 30 people.
Yep.
The road was adequate for 6 cars and maybe 6 motorbikes. The number of trees for the people there was adequate, so you had green space. Now you put a condo with 500 people without improving the drainage or the street.
Yep.
So we have a problem because of either lack of foresight or constraints. So we seem to revisit problems sometimes.
Yes.
Ah, I get it.
So around the area around that condo, and there won't be one condo on that street.
Oh,
there'll
of
be
course.
many.
Next door, yes.
So you'll have traffic jams every morning.
I
8 o'clock.
am very familiar with that, and even at 6 o'clock, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every morning, every evening, everybody goes to work and comes home at the same time.
So other countries became industrialised.
Yes.
Did they take as long? So, for example,
No.
England took 250 years.
Yes.
How about, say, Germany?
Germany was the second country to industrialise.
Okay.
And they obviously had a model to work off.
Right, so they can actually see
so
what
they
had been
looked
done.
at the mistakes we made and sidestepped some of them, not all of them, but most of them. And they did it slightly better.
And how long did they take?
They took 150 years.
So they've done the same thing
Yes.
instead of 250 years in 150.
150, they did it
and
much faster.
maybe because they could see, so another lesson for our audience is learn by other people's mistakes if
Of
you can,
course.
rather than making your own mistakes.
Of course.
And I
Mistakes are expensive.
I remember a phrase about sitting on the shoulder of giants. So if you sit on your predecessor's knowledge, you actually see further into the future. Okay, so we had England 250 years, Germany 150 years. Who was next?
America.
Right, okay, and America?
And you had the greats like, and they, we always credit Henry Ford with the production line, but actually it was James Colt,
Right.
the arms manufacturer, who actually,
Making pistols and that.
making pistols. He looked at a pistol and saw it was complicated. And again, a pistol was handmade. The whole gun was made by one person.
Yes.
So if he had 30 guns to make, he employed 30 people. And James Colt came up with, he took a pistol, stripped it down, reduced the number of parts by 50%,
Yes.
simplified it, and he actually invented the capstan lathe,
Right, yes.
which is...
I remember working on a capstan lathe in my
capstan lathe
apprenticeship.
has a central tool with all different tools on,
Yep.
and it rotates. So the work stands still and the tool rotates. So you drill the barrel, it rotates. You rifle the barrel, that's put the spiral grooves in. And everything was done on a capstan lathe. So
I'll make sure we insert a picture of a capstan lathe to give that qualification.
yes, it's a really fascinating tool.
So that was James Colt.
Yes, he came
Okay.
up with that idea.
So how long did America take for their industrial revolution?
They took about 100.
So England 250, Germany 150, America 100
100,
years.
yeah.
And next?
The final one is Japan. Because Japan was virtually destroyed during World War II, and the Americans felt very responsible for that, which they were, of course, with the atom bomb. They, as an offer of repatriation, reparation, they invested a lot of money and a lot of their ideas into Japan. And the Japanese took it on board wholeheartedly. Now, this is where Asian thinking and Western culture
Collide. Yes.
big time. As a Westerner, we're always focused on the end product, the result. This is where I want to be. This is what I've got to do. The Japanese have got a different mindset. And a good example is the tea ceremony. When they make the tea, the process is important. They place the cup, they rotate the cup so the handles
You
are
really
the
want to
right place.
rotate these cups.
And so every move is calculated and they focus on the process. And the process has got to be beautiful.
So the
and perfect.
ritualization of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you think about that mindset in the culture, that really lends itself to mass production.
So they also then had other developments like JIT, just in time.
Just in
so
time.
rather than having warehouses.
That was an American invention.
Right.
But the Americans didn't take it on board and use it.
And the Japanese
But
did.
the Japanese read the book and thought, wow, this is a good...
There's a movie, Back to the Future, with Michael J. Fox, and I think it's Christopher Lloyd.
Yes, that's...
And as Doc,
Yes.
Christopher Lloyd. And they're looking at something made in Japan. And Doc says, no wonder it's not working, it's made in Japan. Where Michael J. Fox says, hang on, the best things are made in Japan. And so it went from made in Japan was almost like this is going to be some plasticky rubbish.
Oh, yes,
to
it used to be.
state of the art. And I remember as a child, things made in Germany, like a stereo system, was like, wow.
Yeah.
And things made in Japan was so-so.
Yeah.
And now it's the other way around.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, when I'm, like you say, when we were kids, if you wanted a camera, German.
Nikon,
Like
Karl Zeiss lenses,
Leica.
yes.
Yeah. Binoculars, Zeiss binoculars.
Yes.
They were very, very useful tools and beautifully made.
And
but now, if you think about cameras or binoculars, you think Japanese. If you want a TV, you think Japanese.
Well, you
Toyota
can't
cars
see
is a
our
good
crew,
example.
but I can see here 3 Canon cameras. I see over here a whole lot of Samsung and Mitsubishi monitors. It's Japan.
Japanese, yeah. Japanese made. The name, if it says made in Japan, you know you're getting quality.
Yes, yes.
And I think what's happened now, looking at Chinese goods, they've taken the old label from Japan, oh, it's Chinese, it's garbage, you know, and they have got a reputation problem at the moment. But I think they'll overcome it. And they are actually doing to Japan what Japan did to us. They stole the...
I remember Mr. Kreiser talking about GWM motors in one of his sessions. And he was talking about how he thought it might have been a flash in the pan, and yet now they're established. And Chinese Great Wall motors, I think it's really impressive. And there's a lesson there for our students as well, is that everything is cyclic. There are waves, but also where we are now is the result of where we've been. So there's actually value in studying history.
Yes.
That's one
That's
takeaway.
right, yeah.
Knowing where you come from and where you are will help you have some indication of where you could potentially be going.
Yes.
More importantly, I think it's understanding that we share different cultures, so different ways of looking at the world. So, for example, the Japanese tea ceremony compared to a coffee at Starbucks. One is, here's a cup of coffee, thank you very much, goodbye. And the other one is a ritual of let's become one with the whole ceremony.
What do we value when we go to a coffee shop? Quick service. We focus...
Only because we don't know the other alternative. And maybe if we had more knowledge of others...
You lose a quality.
Yep. So possibly then the takeaway for our
something.
students is to understand there are other ways of doing things. And I think that could be a really valuable takeaway for our students.
Well, the culture always comes first, and it drives the mindset. Or the other influence is religion, of course. But if you look at an agrarian society, that is a society that's based in agriculture, farming culture, which most of the Asian cultures were and still are in a large extent. For example, in Thailand.
Well, the rice paddies and the cattle.
75% of the people in Thailand are involved in food production.
Yes.
In England, it's 1%.
So, hang on, if you're involved in food production, if I have rice, for example, my thinking is going to be about the season. The season for planting, the season for planting, the season for harvesting.
Yes.
Right.
So if I say to you, Karl, come and help me to plant the rice on my farm, because it's very much an agreeable society and help each other. Can we plant my rice field? And you say, oh, I'm busy this week, Steve. I've got to go to the city and visit the hospital. My mother's in hospital. Okay, we'll do it next week. Time is not critical. There's a bit of slop in there. We can move it around. But if you work in an industry, it starts. Your working day, you've got a punch card system where you clock in and clock out. Now it's digital, it's a thumbprint. But yes, it's the same thing. You've got to be on time. Hence the expression, time is money. Yes. I think Henry Ford coined that. Steve, thank you very much for today's insights. I think it's really valuable. Just to very quickly recap, understanding that we see the world differently, and maybe that's going to help you mitigate culture shock when you travel. Understanding that where we've come from is a lot of impact on where we are today, and understanding that the entrepreneur is a person who can identify gaps in markets, gaps in services, for example, needs, like your example of the Africans with the shoes we heard about Yeah.
We heard about that example of people with different mindsets. One person sees no market, the other person sees 100% potential. I think there are things that we can learn from. They're very valuable. Steve, thank you so much for your time today.
You're
a real
welcome.
pleasure.
Yeah, time is important.
It is important. It's time for us to go. Thank you. I'd like to thank you for joining me in this episode of Coffee with Karl. Hopefully the episode was a benefit in your personal and professional growth, and the tips, tools and takeaways will further help you. Thank you.